It really is darkest before the dawn. I can get so low. I can believe everything depression tells me that I am and that I'm not. And I believe true suffering is self-absorption and thinking about, like, what about me? And getting lost in my own pain. So as soon as I can be in service in some way or help another person or feel that meaning and purpose again, it's pretty easy to snap out of the delusion of depression and anxiety and fear and resentment and all that. But it's really hard to do and to see clearly when you're in it. Part of my suffering comes from something that I can only describe as putting others on pedestals, of experiencing high expectations that are unreasonable and unfair. I've done this with spiritual teachers, I've done this with partners, with besties, with people in my inner circle, and sooner or later, no one is capable of the level of quality or commitment or whatever it is that I'm looking for in my relationships. No one can hold that level up, and if I continue that behavior, I'll be standing alone. So at some point, in my quote adulthood, if that's what this is, I've realized that I can't have these unreasonable standards, but they originate with me. I'm so hard on myself. And here's what helped me see that I wasn't being fair with others when I began having compassion for my own situation and my own past and my own trauma and grief. So these programs aren't all about navel gazing, like, oh, if I could just work on my trauma and grief. It's not about me. The programs that I'm talking about would include any kind of practice, spiritual or otherwise. Recovery, whatever. It doesn't really matter for the sake of this conversation. What I'm trying to share is that by treating ourselves better, we will naturally treat others with a little more compassion, kindness, whatever, relatability, with a little more, we cut each other a break. No one knows what they're doing. No one is fearless in the way that we may perceive them to be. We can see each other's brag books and brag reels on these social media outlets, and we're looking at highly curated information. No matter who you are, even if you don't use Photoshop or any kind of editing or whatever, you have to admit that the information that we put out on social applications is not necessarily reality, not because we're trying to be duplicitous. The intention is not necessarily to develop some avatar, per se. But we tend to not want to be negative, so we will compartmentalize. We'll cover up the parts that are difficult, and we'll show what we think is culturally appropriate or socially acceptable. Like, I want to promote myself as a positive person. Yay, so I'm going to be doing this, that, and the other. I remember I was invited to do a radio show once, and I was kind of creeped out by the way the person kept calling me the positivity expert or something, or the positivity person. Or I'm like, what? No, that's not what I came here for. It was a very strange way to be sort of, pigeonholed or put into this type. And I tried to make jokes which fell flat and they didn't work, and it sounded like I was being snarky. But the truth is, I don't really enjoy being put in a box, just like everybody else. I have trouble listening to people who are myopic like that. Like, if their entire identity is their gender or their sexual preference or whatever it is that we can make our identities about, or our religion or our political party or whatever. What matters to me is what I do for you and for others. What matters to me is what can I do that's generous? What can I do to give? Not who I say or think that I am. So this bit of philosophy is brought to you by that thought that I started with, which is, it's always darkest just before the dawn. When depression's lying to me, I can get so low. And I do mean solo, like SOLO. As in duality becoming this illusion of being real. And as my good friend in recovery likes to say, we are not alone. So this is a daily reminder to self and other. You're not alone. You're not alone in your feelings. You're not alone when you're depressed. You're not alone when you're listening to your stinking thinking and your poisonous thoughts. You're never alone. This equanimity and this spaciousness and this feeling of freedom can be yours because it's available to anyone. No one is promoting anything. I'm not selling anything. I have no program, no religion, no platform to sell. I'm simply playing conduit or messenger, if you will. And I do hope you'll listen to the message instead of considering the messenger, because the messenger doesn't matter. Right now, I'm going to disappear in this message, which is just when you think you're going to let go is when the magic starts to happen. And it is magic because it's alchemy. It is you changing rapidly. It looks like the end, or it looks like it's the worst, or you may call the suicide hotline. And for what it's worth, I've done this, and they actually put you on hold sometimes. I mean, they're kind of full up, A lot of people don't have self-soothing or coping mechanisms, or they don't know the tools to use. It's not that they're weak. It's just that they don't have those tools yet. And so they'll reach out for anybody, cry out for help. And that's the way we should do it. That's why these systems exist as safety nets. Thankful for that, I'm just really grateful for everyone who participates in such support because it matters. And you matter. You have a place here. You belong here, wherever here is. We always do this as humans. Everyone I know does this. If and when. This is a little game we play. Like, if I can lose 20 pounds. If I can. And when I get to this other place. And when I get a new job. When I get moved. The same problems will follow us unless we get to the root. And I've done a lot of work on this. A lot of reflection. And it's the equivalent of drawing a tiger on the wall in the cave. And once the fire sort of makes the light come alive and licks that painting, I look over and I think, oh my God, there's a tiger. It's so realistic. And I go running out of the cave saying, there's a tiger. Meanwhile, I drew the tiger. I started this. And when I invite my monsters and my demons and all that's torturing me to tea and say, what do you want? When I finally look clearly, the monster is always me. There is no threat. The body perceives threats from trauma and grief that is residual, that hasn't been resolved. So I'm inviting myself and you to look a little closer at that. Because it's not really about who we think we are or what we feel that we are good at or not good at or whatever. It's about how we are, what we do, specifically how we treat others. And if you want to get even more particular, how do we treat people we need nothing from? That is how you can tell if someone has integrity or not. Let's be clear. Reciprocity, or I'll help you if you help me thing, is still self-absorbed, very selfish. But imagine giving to someone who could never repay you in any way, a complete stranger, anonymously. You don't tell anybody. You just do something like a random act of kindness. what a joy this is. What a bump, what an adrenaline rush, what a dopamine high, serotonin boost it can be. Sure, there's payback. But again, that's not really why we would do such things either. How about we just know that we're not alone? That we are in this together. It's a group effort, no matter what it is we're trying to accomplish, or, we're here for a reason together. We must work together. We must love. If I shut people out of my life, and I have shut people out. There are a few people in particular whom I have just said, I have nothing more to say to you. This is too painful. It was more than just I'm stepping away. It was more like, I cannot talk to you. This is not healthy. And in hindsight, I was guarding them from me. Not the other way around. It wasn't like, you're hurting me. It was more like, I think I'm going to hurt you. So I'm just not being reasonable. My fear is greater than my logic right now. And this happens periodically, and this happens to everybody. So, do I have any solutions for this? Nope. But I will say that I'm returning to practice every day. I'm going to stay with this idea that I can reflect and learn and grow and change, and everything's always changing, so that's on my side. I'm not certain about anything. I have no certitude. I have no specific answers. But it would mean a lot to me if you could remember to take care of yourself and love yourself and keep listening and keep participating. That's what I'm going to try to do. And if you find yourself so low that you're calling the suicide hotline, or you're feeling like you're having ideations of suicide or anything even remotely like that, I beg you to reach out to someone. I know people intend to be helpful, and people do care. Most people are doing the best we can, with the resources we have available. So instead of considering it personal if someone doesn't respond in the way that you expected, remember that their resources are different than yours at that time. It's not personal. It's not about how much they love you or don't love you. So when you're having that poisoned thinking that I talk about in Poison for Breakfast, which is a takeoff on Dan Handler's work, by the way, that name is the title of his latest book. A phenomenal writer, also known as Lemony Snicket. Just terrific guy. His sister's a great writer too. They're such a cool team. They're actually hilarious together. And I'm an admirer, so I use that as the title for this thinking that I wake up with, which is really poisonous. After looking into the German word for gift, which is also poison. That is a series of 3 writings that I recently published. You can find it on KathleenKiddo.com under writing. I want to thank you for listening, and please give yourself some extra love. It is of benefit to everyone if you do that. And you are loved. You do belong. You do matter. We need each other. Thank you.